While some have been watching the Democratic primary for a while now, for many the first Democratic debate marked the beginning of the contest. Just who won is, to some extent, a matter of opinion, and I gave you mine in the 2 videos I released in the days following the 2-night event. But while I very much value my own opinion, I in fact always agree with my opinions while I'm giving them, facts and data tend to be even more preferable. While polling is never 100% accurate, well-designed polls offer more authoritative answers than analysis alone. So in this video, I'm going to look at some of the more interesting polls regarding the Democratic debate and the general standings of the various Democratic candidates for the 2020 election. This should help to answer the questions, who won the debate and who's winning the primary. Before we get into a more general picture of how the Democratic primary is looking, I want to take a look at an interesting set of polls conducted by Morning Consult and 538. One of my patrons, Torge, actually pointed me in the direction of this study pretty much immediately after its release, so shout out to him. For this study, the same set of over 7,000 respondents were polled 3 times, before the debates, after night 1 and after night 2. Respondents were registered Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents, and results were weighted to match the national population of the same. The margin of error is 1 percentage point for the first poll and 2 percentage points for the second and third. In this chart, the study examines the relationship between pre-debate favorability of candidates and the perception of their debate performance. It's assumed that candidates that are already well-liked will be identified as winners of their debates, and that trend is indicated by this dotted line. But there are exceptions. Some candidates did better than expected given their baseline favorability, while others not so much. Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang, Beto O'Rourke, and Joe Biden performed especially poorly by this measure. Estimations of performances of Bill de Blasio, Julian Castro, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren were especially high, given the level of favorability they enjoyed prior to the debates. Favorability is also a significant factor for these charts, which indicate the favorability of candidates before and after their performances during the debate. Out of all 20 candidates, just 2 managed to increase their favorability without increasing their unfavorability: Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. The 2 also now have the highest net favorability in the field. All other candidates experienced an increase in unfavorability, while just 1 experienced a decrease in favorability as well: Joe Biden. That's a serious loss for the frontrunner, but Biden is just one of the 11 candidates who lost overall net favorability from the debate. His net favorability dropped by 5.6 points. Tim Ryan's net favorability dropped by 2.6. Delaney lost 3.8 points. 2.5 points were lost by Swalwell. Hickenlooper lost 3.5. Williamson lost a full 9 points. Jay Inslee lost 1.9 points, Gillibrand went down by 1.4 points, Bennett dropped by 1.4 as well, Yang lost 1.7. But the losses of these last 4 are within the margin of error. Far from that is the biggest loser of the net approval changes, Beto O'Rourke, who lost an astounding 11.7 points. Warren gained 10.9 points of net favorability, Kamala Harris gained 9.2. Booker got 6.5, Klobuchar earned a 5-point bump, Gabbard 3.3 points, Mayor Pete 2.4. Within the margin of error, Bernie gained 1.1 points. Well within the margin of error, Bill de Blasio gained 0.4 points. The biggest winner in terms of net approval was Julian Castro, who gained a full 15.4 points in net favorability. Morning Consult and 538 also produced this dizzying chart indicating who gained support and from whom. Among the major candidates, you can see Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders had little changes to speak of. Pete lost a bit, Joe Biden lost a significant amount of support, even after just the first debate where he didn't appear. The biggest change was the massive growth of support for Kamala Harris, who seemed to pull supporters mainly from Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden. As interesting as this study is, the real test as far as the polls go of the major Democratic debate is the movement of the general national polls for the Democratic primary. And I find the Real Clear Politics averages as a good measure of this, as RCP aggregates all national polls that they deem reliable. By comparing the RCP averages on the day of the first night of the debates, June 26th, to now, we see a broader perspective of how the debates affected the race. Julian Castro, for example, who seemed like one of the big winners in the debates, is still polling at just 1.3%, And de Blasio, despite his strong performances, still down at 0.4%. The most interesting change among the minor candidates is probably that of Tulsi Gabbard, who managed to move from general obscurity to 8th place, albeit still polling at just 1.4%. Among the major candidates, trends are clearer. Elizabeth Warren, though a clear winner based on the Morning Consult and 538 polls, has really just continued the gains that she had already been making, moving up from 12.8 points to 13.7. Beto O'Rourke dropped from 3.3 points to 2.6, and Booker has changed little, dropping by just 0.2 points to 2.1%. Bernie's high standing has been chipped away a bit, dropping from 16.9 points to 15.3. Buttigieg had a relatively major downward shift, losing a full 2 points, down now to just 5 points. But Biden's losses are the clearest, having dropped from 32 points to 27.1. The biggest gains were clearly made by Kamala Harris, who more than doubled her support in the RCP poll averages from 7.0 points to a full 15, nearly tying Bernie Sanders, who is just barely hanging on to his status as the second place candidate in the race so far. Not a bad result for Harris, who entered the debates in a heated battle for 4th place with Mayor Pete. As it now stands, Joe Biden remains the frontrunner, but has been in perpetual freefall since early May. Sanders, Harris, and Warren are now in close contention for 2nd place. Whether one of these three can take the lead is still yet to be seen, but personally, I do expect that one, if not all three of these candidates, will likely overcome Biden in the coming months. Aside from the rise of Kamala Harris, perhaps the biggest change in the primary race since the debates has not been captured in the polls. And that is, of course, Eric Swalwell, who, after failing to receive a torch passed from anybody, has dropped out of the race.
Today ends our presidential campaign, but it is the beginning of an opportunity in Congress with a new perspective, shaped by the lives that have touched mine and our campaign throughout these last 3 months, to bring that promise of America to all Americans.
By the way, those edit marks are just me cutting his pauses. It's been widely reported that he is the first to drop out. Actually, that was Richard Ojeda. All the same, I'd like to end this video with a loving tribute to Eric Swalwell and all he contributed to this primary race.
I've come back here to Dublin, backed by my neighbors who have always been in my corner, to declare my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
I'm ready to solve these problems. I'm running for President of the United States.
Joe Biden was right when he said it was time to pass the torch to a new generation of Americans 32 years ago.
I've come home to Dublin to tell you a story about America.
It's time to pass the torch.
It's my story.
Here's the solution. Pass the torch.
But it's your story too.
Pass the torch to the generation that's going to feel the effects. I was 6 years old.
I'm fired up.
If we're going to solve the issues of automation, pass the torch.
The next generation of Americans. To believe that it will be the next generation whose leadership will solve climate chaos.
Pass the torch. Pass the torch. Pass the torch.
Today ends our presidential campaign.